Aloha! Hey, beautiful morning here. Yeah, when I need information on a horticultural subject, I will use the internet. I also have a library, and I've got my head, which is packed full of information these days too, but I will use the internet. But I will almost never go to some guy's YouTube show on, hey, look at my garden. I don't do that. The reason why is I want good, solid information. I don't want hearsay or people's belief systems. And so most places I go would either be University of Hawaii when looking for information. They have some great stuff online. I go to the University of California frequently. Really good source. Especially UC Davis. UC Davis has a program with the Master Gardeners. And so if you type, say it's peaches you want information on, so you type peaches / UC Davis / Master Gardener, or UC Davis / IPM, which means Integrated Pest Management. And what you'll find is you'll get all the information anybody ever put down in that college on peaches. You'll get the commercial chemicalized information. You will also get more organic, natural approaches. You'll get the integrated approach, which sits between the two. UC Davis, it pretty much has it all. It's got, common sense pest control and nuke 'em and stomp 'em pest control. It's all there, and it's good information. University of Florida, real good too. I'm here in the tropics, and so universities like Florida, Hawaii, California's useful. Sydney, Australia, again, another great source. Good agricultural stuff on their website there. But they do deal with things that are more like what I generally grow here, okay? And so if I need information on apples, New York, University of New York has a lot of information on apples. There's information in Ohio, Michigan. There's, depending on what the crop is. If you look at an area of the country where this crop might be raised, you're probably going to find information on the crop. Pawpaws. You want to know anything about pawpaws that I didn't tell you or that I don't know? University of Kentucky. That's the National Pawpaw Genetic Repository. It's the University of Kentucky. They got it all, So if I want to find out about a pawpaw, I don't go to some guy on the web who says, I was out in the woods yesterday and I picked a pawpaw. They're pretty good. No, I don't do that. Mostly because people have belief systems. I don't have them. Everything in this world for me is hypothetical. What answers I have will probably do for now until a better piece of data comes by. I take a scientific approach to absolutely everything in life, including my spiritual existence. If I can't verify it, I can't prove it. It's only a hypothetical situation as far as I'm concerned. There are no facts. People tend to honor their belief systems as if, like it's holy or something. And so we're led around by the nose by politics, religion. Gardeners are no different. Oh my goodness. With the novice gardener, I have observed a phenomena I call the secret ingredient. That somehow or another, these guys have gotten themselves to believe that some item off the shelf at home, powdered cinnamon or whatever it might be, is the magic bullet for making their garden grow. Where really, what they really need is good culture, proper irrigation, enough compost, and some fertilizer in the soil. Maybe a little insect control, and things will go just great. But instead, I had a lady one time tell me, I put super glue underneath my orange tree. Makes the oranges sweeter. Now, I mean, I know they use super glue to grow together, glue together pieces of the body. I mean, when they're doing an operation, they can stick an artery together with that stuff. It has a lot of uses, it really does. But making oranges sweeter, I don't think so. I can't see any particular reason why that would be. You want your oranges as sweet as possible, try using citrus food. It helps a lot. So, the reason I'm giving this whole spiel here, it is because quite frequently I'm getting questions from people about some, I'm going to call them yo-yos. I'm not going to swear. You guys know I don't cuss. The closest I'll get is that I'm hearing a bunch about a whole load of horse crap from some people. I heard it was a bit down in Florida, maybe. I don't know. They're on the internet. They're not in a place where I'd ever go to look for information. But the guys are talking about growing fruit trees with living mulches that you don't have to mow, you don't have to fertilize, there won't be any pest control. Basically, they're advocating this idea that you can grow food in a wild setting without actually having to cultivate. Well, to begin with, most of the fruiting plants that we use have been with humans for so long that they are essentially dependent on our cultivation practices. They have become adapted to them. Now, it's not true with all plants. Some plants are so close to the wild that, yes, it is possible to do something like this, all right? Guavas, and another myrtus, the jabuticaba. Here in Hawaii, on the right soil conditions, with the right rainfall, the plants can be grown in the wild almost as if they were a native plant, and just letting the weeds grow around the bottom of them and so on, and you're still going to get some pretty decent crops off of those plants. On the other hand, you try the same thing with citrus around here, you're going to get next to nothing. The case of avocados, this idea that when you're growing these things in this wild condition and you're not pruning, you're not feeding, that somehow or another the pests don't bother them. Well, sorry, man. This stuff comes from guys, I guess, who haven't been around long enough, haven't been observing what happens in fields long enough. That's what it is their lack of experience is how they're getting this stuff and promoting it. Here in Hawaii, for instance, we get brand new pests all the time. Yeah, they come in on the boats, they come into the cargo containers, they come in, in people's pockets, but we constantly get infested with brand new pests. Well, when these things get here, they don't have natural controls. So, for instance, the avocado lace bug, all right, it came here a couple of years ago from California, started spreading across the avocados. We got avocados wild in the woods all over here because of the pigs. They've been spread all over the island. They got into the wild trees. They started eating the leaves. Pretty soon what happens is on so many of the trees, they literally knocked every leaf off of the avocado trees. There's nothing here that eats the lace bug. There's no control over the lace bug. The state right now is worried that it will completely destroy the avocado industry in Hawaii. Over here behind me, this here is an avocado tree. Okay. Now, I do things in naturalized ways. These are papayas right here. Okay. These are peppers underneath. There's tomatoes hanging off on that side over there. This is an avocado tree right here. I have found that when I'm growing things in a foresty sort of a setting in groups, that some plants really respond well to that. Here, this is what the avocado lace bug does to your avocados here. Okay. They do a real good job of it. Now, I have noticed that when I have them planted in combinations like this, that the avocados seem to do better for some reason when they're planted with those papayas. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I do observe it, and it seems right. Avocados standing alone, there's one across the way there, by by the neighbor's house. That tree had almost 2/3 of the leaves knocked off of it last year from these darn things, until I went over and did some treatment to it. And it's still in worse condition than the one that's over here underneath the papayas. The older tree in the backyard over here had every leaf removed. The old tree in the next door neighbor's yard, every leaf knocked off. Okay, I'm rattling on and on about the lace bug as if it's the only problem we have, and it isn't. But the idea that you can take a tree like the one I have over there, it's in the field being mown, it's not clean cultivated, that it's going to somehow be immune to insects and you're not going to have to deal with it. It's going to do just fine growing like that's a load of garbage. It is junk. I have had numerous people who come here to talk to me or address me in comments on YouTube asking me questions about these guys and about this practice. Well, don't talk to me about it. Honestly, the guys are nuts, okay? They don't know what they're talking about, so why ask me? I don't know what they're talking about either. I get it frequently. That's why I'm doing this video right now. I don't know where this came from. It could be somehow... It could be a misconstrued concept that comes up from like Masanobu Fukuoka, One Straw Revolution, that he does natural farming. Absolutely. Call it permaculture. There wasn't a name for that when he started doing this. Bill Mollison come on later on, in Australia with his permaculture concepts. These are all good ideas. Yeah, they're all good. One Straw Revolution certainly started me on a train of thought. I grow crops in living ground covers. But the idea that, say for instance, there's perennial peanut down here in the garden underneath those papayas and avocado, that's a living ground cover over there. But if I didn't mow that periodically, it just becomes completely infested with every other weed on earth. And around here, you get like Miley pilau and Wainaku grass. I've seen Wainaku grass and Miley completely cover an orchard here. You're living down south, you got kudzu vine. Oh yeah, sure. You don't have to mow around your fruit trees, right, guys? I've seen them in Mississippi. They got flamethrower trucks that go down the highways that burn that stuff back. It grows so fast. There's some place, somewhere, certain crops done just in such a way. I agree, it's possible. I have jabuticaba over here growing in situ, almost in a wild setting. I hardly ever fertilize them. I really don't have to do any insect or fungus control with them, although they do get fungus. I get rust fungus on the fruit on Sabra. And unless you treat for rust fungus on the fruit on Sabra, all you can do with the fruit when you get it is throw it out, which is what I do. I don't bother to spray for the rust fungus. It doesn't happen every time. That's what I'm saying. These guys are novices. They haven't been around long enough because conditions are not the same from one year to another. On the farm and in the garden, it's always something different. And generally speaking, when something different shows up, it's usually unopposed, and you generally have to do something about it or just give up and trash the crop. Yeah, that's like pickle worms here. Okay, anybody who lives on the island, you guys know what a pickle worm is, right? Yeah. Let's try planting cucumbers in the field and not mow around them using a living ground cover, and don't use any insect control, and see what happens to your cucumbers. That's a joke. Pretty much the same thing goes with cabbages. If you want to go through and you want to pick off every green worm by hand and smash it, you can do that. And the birds do eat some of those green worms. And they don't hurt the cabbages, and so some of it goes away with the birds, some of it we smush. But if you want a decent looking head of cabbage, and especially if you want to try to sell it to some poor guy here, you're going to have to come up with some way to keep the insects off. And in my case, I use spinosad. It's a bacteria. You could use BT. It's a bacteria. It'd work. But again, this whole idea that things don't take cultivation, or there isn't a process you have to go through, You know, I've seen dragon fruit. Try growing dragon fruit, or try growing vanilla without trellising them. Okay? You won't get anything. Dragon fruit and vanilla both have to be turned sideways and then allowed to dangle downward in order to build up enough carbohydrate to fruit. Okay? Peaches. Try growing a peach tree by these guys' technique. Oh yeah, you don't have to prune, don't have to do any bug control. Yeah, it's real easy, you know. Sure, right. I mean, you can mow grass around a peach tree and it's fine. You know, mowing weeds and mowing stuff around trees is reasonably good fertilizer. I do it a lot over here. A lot of my coffee is just for fertilizer, has just weeds mowed. It's enough that they eke along. They never produce a crop like you'll see in a textbook unless you fertilize, but they will eke along. In the case of a peach, though, a peach is extremely weak-wooded. It only makes fruit on the wood that was produced last year, every year. If you don't prune a peach tree, eventually the wood is way out here someplace where the fruit's at. You will end up with lots and lots and lots of really tiny, croppy little peaches because it'll begin to overbear if it isn't thinned. And then the weight of that crop will then crack the limbs and the tree will be destroyed. I had to deal with this with novice gardeners in California so often. Oh, they didn't want to prune the tree. Oh, I was afraid I'd hurt the tree if I prune. Oh, the trunk's split in two from the weight of the fruit. What do I do now? Plant a new tree. Apricot, same situation, man. You know, when it comes to like peaches, for instance, the idea that, oh, this natural stuff is going to take care of your pest problems. Sorry. At least in the Bay Area of California, peaches had two fungal problems that were pretty intense. One was peach leaf curl, the other one was mildew. The one was in summer, the other one attacks during the winter. They both have different controls. Sometimes you can get by a bit without dealing with the mildew, depending on the variety, where the tree's placed, and other factors. Peach leaf curl, forget it. You don't treat for peach leaf curl. Man, you don't have peaches. All you got is curl fungus. Yeah, I could rattle on like this all day long because this stuff, when they ask me these questions, drives me absolutely crazy. You know what happens when you don't cultivate a blackberry? It ends up in a weed patch. You can't even get inside of it. Same is true for raspberries. Raspberries require cultivation. They need to be pruned. They need to be trellised. They need to have the old wood taken out and the new wood tied up, and etc., etc. It's all these management things that go with a whole lot of the crops that we raise, you know. Even just birds. Around here, birds are one of my major pests, okay? I spend a lot of time with a pellet gun trying to control things. I use netting and a few other things, but generally speaking, either the pellet gun or just giving up are probably about the only two ways I can deal with the birds. Yeah, you can grow Satsuma mandarins here without any pest control for the birds. You won't get any mandarins because the white eyes will poke holes in all of them and they'll all rot, but, you know, yeah, the tree grows. Proof positive, that's a whole bunch of weeds over there, and there's cabbages beyond it, and then there's lettuce right here. On the other hand, on this side here, when I put in the those beans, I clean the weeds off. I don't know about you. They come back. They're right here in the walk row. I'll deal with these too. You know, over here, you wouldn't even see this broccoli. It would not be here if I did not periodically go in there and cut or pull the weeds. Keep this pasture out here from completely eating everything in my garden. Takes a mower. You can see here. There's the mower. And run around the edge of this. Some cases I didn't use a mower. I used a flamer. But if I don't stop the pasture from entering my vegetable garden, I don't have a vegetable garden anymore. I got a pasture. This is Perennial Peanut. Now, the way I got a nice, clean, beautiful stand over here of sweet corn and perennial peanuts is I came through with my flamer. I flamed all the weeds that were here from the previous crops, pulled them up, tossed them, turned around. The seed from the perennial peanut pops up from underneath after the flaming. And then I put in my sweet corn and I spread a bunch of chicken manure. If I didn't use chicken manure out here, and the only thing I was using for fertilizer was the dead weeds, there would be no sweet corn. Sweet corn cannot be grown, basically, without a really large amount of fertility applied to it. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's manure, fish waste, all sorts of different things. It really doesn't matter that much. But it has to happen, or you don't have sweet corn. Okay. Over here from this side, you can see there's my papayas in a clump. There's some tomatoes there. There's avocado in it. You'll see squash and tomato rambling out from beyond it. The lower stuff on the ground in front is perennial peanut. So here we're talking about sort of a living mulch, you know, sort of a perennial edible ground cover. But that is not permanent over there. No, it becomes a complete mess and disaster, and periodically I have to go in, pull some of the weeds out of there. Generally I pile kitchen garbage and then cover it with cardboard. And it's the reason that looks fairly neat is because the weeds are covered in kitchen garbage and cardboard underneath. The cardboard, or sorry, the kitchen garbage puts down enough fertility that I'm able to fruit those papayas, and we have pretty good pepper crops. There's also chicken manure added over there too. With papayas, if I don't put down extra manure, extra fertilizer, they gradually senesce. The top gets tinier and tinier until it wastes away and there's nothing there. Well, that right over there is Gracie. I think she sees a lizard in my tree. Even the cat takes a certain amount of care, you know. She's pretty good on her own, but hey, she gets worms. She can get fleas. And the reason she came to us is she couldn't find enough to eat. She's domesticated, half wild, half domesticated. You know, and once things become domesticated, they become dependent on human activity. Right over here are blackberries. Over here on this end, my triple crown is finally starting to produce berries. I was afraid it wasn't going to do it. It's my favorite blackberry. But again, you see, this is a fence, right? The blackberries are woven into the fence. The old canes from last year are pruned out, and the new ones are placed up on the fence. So I don't know what to tell you, folks. The whole idea, for instance, of growing brambles without having maintenance and cultivation is a knot. You can't do it. You just end up with a big mess. Over here, we get some jalapeno peppers and some Hawaiian cocktail peppers. You see on the ground underneath, there's cardboard. Under the cardboard is my kitchen waste. Okay. The reason those peppers aren't overrun with weeds is because cardboard and kitchen waste. They're fertilized with the waste, and the weeds are kept down with the cardboard laid over the top. From the waste pops up a wild papaya. And I said, oh, hey, that's a good idea. I like that. So I turn around and I took some Waimanalo solo papayas out of the nursery, and I planted them over there, and I put more cardboard on the ground with more kitchen garbage underneath. Okay. Now, here we have weeds, peppers, and papayas all in a group together. All right. Now, I can't just let the weeds grow, and grow. I either have to come through and cultivate them periodically, cover them, flame them. You know, there's a whole lot of different possibilities. But, well, for instance, we don't have any jalapenos if I just let the weeds grow. They bury the plant. It's over. The one thing in the world, it's the worst thing you can do to a pineapple plant, is don't cultivate. Let the grass come up around it. Weeds are the biggest enemy of the pineapple. They don't need a lot of fertilizer. They're fairly good almost at naturalizing here for a crop. Pretty good at it. But they require cultivation or mulch or take your pick, however you want to deal with it. You don't deal with the weeds, you don't get pineapples. Pineapples, again, the mother plant dies after the fruit's picked. And so then you end up with 7 offsets. What are you going to do with the offsets? What, just let them lay there? No, you have to replant them, all right? Here is a Yamagata avocado. It's a relatively new one, grafted, that I just put in just ahead of the lace bugs getting here. And you can see right there, that's what they did to the darn thing. Now they're dead because I used spinosad. And if I hadn't used spinosad, all of this would look like that. Well, there's my guardian angel hanging out watching me, huh? Look, Gracie, look what I found. You don't care about pineapples one bit, do you? Well, I've been ranting and rolling for about 15 minutes over here. I'm probably going to have to edit a lot of this out. Yeah, it gets under my skin. It does, because I don't come up with these stupid ideas, and I don't promote them. And it really disturbs me when I'm here on my channel trying to give people the best possible information on garden and crops that I can come up with. I'm not always right. And if you ask 10 different experts about the same subject, chances are you will get 10 different answers, and every one of them will be right, depending on your point of view and perspective. It's the thing about belief systems, man. Yeah, it depends on what you believe in. But I, long before people started calling things permaculture and so on, I had people who came to me who looked at what I was doing, some of them college professors who taught courses in permaculture, and said, "Bill, you're a permaculturist." I go, "Oh, yeah, sure, okay." I don't put labels on things. I do what I do. This is just the way that I grow stuff. Well, the techniques I use tend to be rather natural, quite progressive compared to, your typical agriculture. Here in Hawaii, I do not till. And I experimented with no-till growing both in California and in the Midwest. Here, I definitely do not till. The soil is too soft. It's too erosive. We lose it if we break it up. And so, my crops are always grown in settings where I have living or dead root material, living or dead plant material. We do so much chop and drop. Like I grow pigeon peas through my citrus, and I go through and I whack away at them and throw them on the ground underneath. It's on and on. I do a whole lot of really natural approaches to gardening, but I get like about 150 inches of rain a year over here, all right? And with that much rain, I don't care what you're doing. Many crops are going to starve to death because the nitrogen is mobile and it's going to go and just wash away. And I have perennial peanut cover crops under there that are nitrogen-fixing legumes. The pigeon peas are nitrogen-fixing legumes. But the nitrogen is constantly disappearing. And so for some crops, like guava or jabuticaba, they'll grow almost in the wild here. They need very little additional fertilizer. Some plants just seem to be almost perfectly adapted, say, to Hawaii's conditions. Hibiscus is not a fruit, but the hibiscus plant grows here with hardly, any kind of fertility care or anything like that. Although pruning, I'm sure, makes them look a lot better. But, yeah, there are some things. There are some crops. But they're few, far between, and the guys that promote the idea that you can do this are doing you a real disservice, and they're giving you disinformation, because likely you're going to have a miserable project and you will probably fail if you follow these instructions. Most cultivated crops cannot be grown without cultivation if you wish to have any kind of reasonable results from them. You can plant an apple tree out in the middle of a cow pasture, and if the cows don't ruin it and the deer don't trim it too bad, you probably see some apples on it. You're not going to see anything like you would if the tree was being maintained. The quality of the crop is going to probably be miserable because there's a very good chance, depending on where you're living, that you'll either have contracted codling moth and they'll be in the fruit, or you have the apple maggot that's in the east, or you have fire blight, which is a dreadful disease in pears and apples. I don't know what to tell you, people. It's a load of horse crap, whatever these guys are putting forth. There'll be a few things that might work that way. Most things, don't listen to them. Don't waste your time. It's more complicated than that, trust me. I've been doing this for a long time now. I'm 70 years old, be 71 this year even. And I've been doing this since I was a teen, so I could honestly say I've probably been a good 65 years at what I'm doing here. And I've been through the whole school of organic gardening. I've been through the permaculture approaches and so on, I've read all the best books on these subjects, and I've experimented with most of this. My conclusion is, it's a mixed bag. You can get away with some natural fertilizers. You can get away with some natural pest controls. You're probably going to have to throw some other sorts of fertility onto your plants over time. Just mowing the weeds around your orange trees is not going to give the orange trees enough nutrients to be able to make a good crop. The idea that plants grown in the wild are pest-free is the biggest load I have ever heard. Okay, let's get one thing clear here. Over-fertilized plants are stressed. They're susceptible. When plants are receiving too much nutrient, trying to force them to grow, they become very succulent to the insects and diseases that attack them. All right, so on the other hand, plants that don't receive any fertilizer and are just growing in the wild, they're generally also stressed because they are cultivated plants. An apple tree is not a wild plant. Okay, it's not anymore. And so you put them in the wild, subject them to just natural conditions, they stress too. And so insects are drawn to stress. Uncared for plants, stressed. Overcared, stressed. The reality is somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. Not too much fertilizer. As little care as required, but the idea of no care is just complete malarkey. It's garbage. Absolute garbage. I don't know who the guys are. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to meet them. And I want to keep taking questions about their dumb ideas. Alrighty. Aloha. I'll hang loose.